Maseches Bava Kama Daf Tzad Zayin Amud Aleph. Yeah, let's go. You. So we said yesterday that according to Avodim are like karka. Avodim, slaves, the Eved Knani has exactly the same halachas like karka, like a piece of land, and just like a piece of land halachically cannot be properly stolen, so to speak, and therefore, if one stole a karka and with a change in the karka in the land, it's not called a change because it's as if the karka never left the hands of the original owner. So there was no real geneva. Therefore, the shinui, the change, is irrelevant. Shinui is only relevant and makes a difference and makes the ganav be the new owner, and he has to pay like the original amount. Da 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 da. That is only true when you say that the item was first stolen. It's taken away from someone's house. Then there was a change in the house of the ganav, and in the house of the ganav, once there was a change, it belongs to him, and he has to pay the higher price of the original, of the original item. But if something was not really halachically stolen because it's a piece of land, the land cannot walk, as far as I know. So the land was never really stolen, and the change is not a change. And he tells the other person, the victim, the land is now in a new shape, better, worse. You take it as it is, and that's it. The same thing applies to Avodim, says who? Says Rav. Rav follows the opinion in the Mishnah, which he believes are Chachomim, as we said yesterday, not the majority of Rabbi Meir, and he says Eved is like a karka. Therefore, according to Rav, if you stole an Eved, and the Eved was a young, robust, diligent, muscular, 20 years old, and now you brought him back 30 years later, who is 50 and not as fit and athletic, and is significantly older. According to Chachomim, according to whoever argues with Rav, we say, it's a changed Eved, he's a changed man, not changed for the good, and therefore now you keep that old piece of cranky thing and give me back the millions that he was owed originally. But Rav says no. Rav says avodim lakikarka. Rav takes it literally. When the Torah says avodim lakikarka, even though physically the Eved is different, it's as if he was never stolen. It's as if the Eved was never stolen. Since the Eved was never stolen, it's as if it was all the time in the house of the original guy. And therefore he says the shinui does make a difference. The difference doesn't make a difference. And you take the Eved as it is. That's what we said yesterday according to Rav. Now the Gemara is going to challenge that.
Does he not pay for the use of the slave over the years?
No. Very good question. Very good question. Wait. Actually made an excellent question now, and that's going to be today's topic. Your question is actually a very, very good question because it's opening that would be the title of today's Shiur. Do you or don't you pay for the use that you made of the item, of your friend's item throughout the years? And you know what? I'll already answer you now. When a person borrows something without permission, let's say I have the phone over here. I never use my phone during Seder, almost hardly, unless I get a phone call from I don't know, from Baruch Rin, or from my wife, which never calls me during Seder, Baruch Hashem. So then what? So then let's say somebody takes my phone, without permission. Took my phone without permission. So the question is, how do you define a person who took the phone without permission? If you define, and let's say my phone is for rent, will you use my phone? It's 2 shekels a phone call. No, not really. You look at me as if I'm serious. No, you can use my phone for free. It's fine. You guys look too serious. Let's say I'm a miserly guy or really needy, and my stupid phone I'm going to give you for, I don't know, 2 shekels a call, and somebody takes it for free and gives it back to me. So you're asking a valid question. If he's a gazlan, does he have to pay me the 2 shekels that he used it? That is not so simple. So here we have basically 2 separate, I would say, maslulim, 2 separate systems in which you can look at it. If the person is a ganav, and he had in mind that he wants to steal my phone, although eventually gave it back to me, but when he used it, his mind and his actions were Mashicha, Edas, he wants to steal it, and he does not have to pay for the use. You know why? Because now, as long as it's in his possession, it's his. It's his for that time. It's unfair. It's not unfair. Because the Ganav also has a disadvantage that if my phone now looks not as fresh as new as before, and I can claim it's shinui, then I'll tell him, pay me the original phone. Now, the other program, the other system, the other maslul would be the other way. Let's say he steals my phone, and he doesn't mean to steal it. It's time he saw a phone on the thing. Like a lot of people don't keep Torah mitzvahs. They tend to be very, lax with other people's money. He doesn't care. I don't care. He would take the phone, use it for a minute or two without asking me. Does he mean to steal it? Mapitom. He's not a thief. He wants this to stay in my possession, in my domain, in my medrash where I learn. He's only using it while it is in my ownership, under my ownership. Then, Rabbi, he has to pay. Because since he did not steal it and he's still using it under my auspices, so to speak, without my permission, then I can say, excuse me, my phone is 2 shekels a call. Pay me 2 shekels for every call you made. Because he's not a guy that took it away. On the other hand, by the way, the second maslul of using it without permission under my control, so to speak, under my authority, under my ownership, that case, if anything happens to the phone, he doesn't have to pay for it because he never really took it. There's no kinyan and there's no shinui. You get what I'm saying? Yeah? I'll say both. When a person uses somebody else's item without permission, be it a slave, be it a phone, be it a boat, we're going to see a case later on, right? You have a big fancy yacht, a few of them, of course, moored in Isle of Man. So somebody takes your yacht for a ride, for a sail without telling you, So there are 2 ways how to look at it. If the person stole it, he had in mind, I'm taking this away from so-and-so because I want this to be mine. And because I'm Putin, I want everything to be mine, and that's about it. And I want this to be mine. And therefore what? In that case, the time that he used it, he doesn't have to pay for. Why? Because while it was by him, it was not by me. It was snatched away from me, and now it's not mine temporarily, and I do not charge him for the usage. You may say it's unfair. It is fair, because he does have the liability as a gazlan that if anything happens to it, then what? Then he has to pay me the original fancy, big, high price and stay with the junky piece that is now junky after a lot of wear and tear. That is the responsibility of the Ganav. That's what we call in Hebrew maslul, route, direction number 1. The other option is if the person uses it without permission, without being a Ganav. Let's say it wasn't his kavono or not a maise, or sometimes you have items where gneva does not apply to, such as eved, according to Rav. If gneva does not apply, and he does use it without my permission in my house, he's not stealing it. He's just using it without permission. The guy comes to your house, starts using everything. I don't like it, right? Yeah, let's say starts, I don't know, he's not taking away drinking or eating, but he uses the phone, whatever. He uses stuff without permission. Then he's not stealing it. He's using your stuff while it's under your ownership without permission. That is not called a ganav. And in that case, he does have to pay you, because then why not? This is my thing, which you never take away from me. As long as it's under my ownership, this does cost 10 shekels a minute or 5 shekel a phone call, and then he has to pay. We'll see more as the sugya develops. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, but the sugya develops as we go along, and we're going to explain everything. I prefer no questions now unless they're very specific. Jeffrey, I repeated it for you. I hope you're content. Something very quick and to the point. No ifs.
So the gunner who steals the phone, and he gets up 1,000 shekels.
I just want to point out what we saw yesterday. You were not here yesterday, so I'll repeat it for you. We said that, and this is Shulchan Aruch. What I'm telling you now is Shulchan Aruch Siman Shin Samech Gimel in Choshen Mishpat. When a ganav stole, he does not have to pay for, so to speak, the illegal rent for the time of the theft. No, he doesn't have to. However, Chachamim made a gzera, which is anti-takonas hashavim. If he's a bad boy, if he's a ganav that's a repeating customer, he's a guy who always steals, and Chachamim see that he's basically abusing Chachamim's lenient attitude towards ganavim. If we see that he's not doing tshuva and he repeats it twice, then what? Then Chachamim many times would ask him, midorabonon, as a takana, You pay for the time that you used it in order to give him a deterrent, to have a deterrent for the Ganim. So the answer is no, but Rabbanon did establish it, and we shall commence now Be'ezras Hashem. Frag the Gemara. Now both points are going to merge together. Umi Omar Rav Avda Kemekarka Idami. Are you sure that you're right? Is that so? Did Rav indeed say that an Eved, a slave, is like a karka, which means what? That there is no theft regarding Eved? Regarding Eved, there's no stealing, and therefore if I stole the Eved, it's not considered as if I stole it, and therefore, if I give it back 20 years later, it looks all white and wrinkled, I say no, it's as if I never stole it, and therefore take it as it is. I'm not the guy responsible for the change, right? Is that what Rav really said? Are you sure? The Omar of Daniel Bar of Ktina Omar Rav, of Daniel Bar of Ktina quotes Rav, here we come to our topic of today, using without permission. A person forced his friend's slave, also by malacha. I saw my friend's slave, and I'm not talking about the injury done to the slave. He also has to pay for that. That's another point. That's a bleeding heart question. That's besides that. But I actually forced my friend's slave. Now you come to my house and you do my sponge job because it was Pesach and all my grandchildren were there and the house is messy. You come to me now and you do the work for me instead of doing the work to your own owner. I stop in the middle of his work to his own owner instead of the sponge is doing to his owner, and I grab him to my house to do malacha for me. Potu. What does it mean, potu? Potu means to say I can just give back the eved. Potu from what? Look at Rashi, and that's the most important point. You, Yosef, that's what you're asking. Potu milishalim lebe'olav schoroi. I don't have to pay. Let's say the Eved, if the Eved was a paid person, Ozeret, he would charge, 40 shekels an hour. Yeah, 40 shekels an hour. I used him for 2 hours without the Baalim's permission. The Baalim didn't see anything, and I took it, and then I brought him back 2 hours later, 80 shekels worth. I don't have to pay those 80 shekels. I'm potter from paying. Why am I potter from paying? Well, depends. If you want to tell me if you said Eved is like karka, which means that it's not stolen, you're getting what's happening over here. If using the Eved against his will, the owner's will, is considered as gzela, as if it moved from his reshus to mine, and he went to my house, then he's potu, because Ganav is meikard in potu from paying rent while he was ganived by me. But if you say an evidence like a karka, am I potu? Why is it potu? If evidence like a karka, even if I took it all the way to Timbuktu, I took it all the way to, Chile, I took it to the end of the world, still, it's never called halachically stolen. If so, continues the Gemara, Birshusa Demare Koi. It's still standing in the reshus of the original owner, and I do have to pay the rent. You can't have the cake and eat it. You have to choose your maslul, like in the bank, you have to choose the system you want to work with. If we say that an eved is like a karka, which means an eved cannot be stolen, so the eved was all the time under my authority, says the victim, now pay me for each and every hour. Because if you use the phone inside the besmedrash next to me without my permission, then you do have to pay me, because you're not a ganav. A ganav made the clear-cut point, boom, from now on, it's mine, says a Ganav. Into a certain respect, he's right, although he has more responsibility, and he doesn't have to pay the rent. But if an Eved is considered as something that is not stealable, so to speak, and an Eved is considered to be what? Eved is all the time under the Bailim, then pay. You used my Eved, which cost 40 shekels an hour, while it was under me. You didn't steal it and make the change into a non-profit situation. So do give me now the 40 shekels times 2 times 3 and pay me for everything you did. Elamai must be the trav. The Gemara now wants to deduce from that really, according to Rav, an Eved, if the Eved potu, I'm potu for paying the rent of the Eved, must be that, if I'm potu, that means what? That the Eved is, yes, stolen, can be stolen, and is not like karka. It's not like karka, which is not stealable. It is stealable. It is something stolen halachically. And that's why I don't have to pay the rent. Because as long as it's under the Ganev's auspices, it's rent free. That's what the Gemara wants to come and say, to deduce from that. Answers the Gemara, very easy answer, which takes us to a whole different place in halacha. We're now going back in time tunnel, into Daf Chof. Oh, that's many dafim ago. Answers the Gemara, kinyan. You know the story's over here. I'm making nukimta here. Sheloi bishas melocha. Wow. You know when I took the Eved? I took the Eved in a time when it's anyhow not doing any melocha. Let's say there is a time, says Rashi, that the Bailim has nothing to give him to do. Right now, the house is tidy, the kids are all bathed, I don't know, everything is fine. David sits there on his smartphone. David has nothing to do. So at that point, the reason why, if the neighbor comes and takes the Eved, hopefully not under gunpoint, but he takes the Eved to his house and forces him to clean and do the sponge in his house, why he's potter? Not because of anything we spoke about until now. Because it's called because you, Mr. Owner, at that time, I know that between 9 and 10, he doesn't do anything at all. He just sits there watching his shtuyot and maybe Avodah Zarah on the smartphone. That's all he does. Your Filipino. That's he does. At that time, I wanted him to come and use him for my grandfather or to wash my floor. And that's called Zenen of Zelochoser. That's why it's potul. So leave alone the whole story of Gneva, non-Gneva. It's not the issue here. He didn't prove anything from there. It's just a matter of Zen Hen of Zelochoser, which we're going to now review inside. Now the Gemara is going to go into this subject. We compare it to the topic that was sent, Sholach Rabbi Abba lemari bar Mar. Rabbi Abba sent a letter, to Mari bar Mar, and he told him in the letter there was a question asked to Rav Huna. Hadar bechatzar chaver shelo midaito, a famous case in Daf Chaf Aleph. A person lives in his friend's chotzer or in a friend's apartment, or maybe in his flat, either in the apartment or the flat, one of the two. He lives there without his friend's knowledge. I want to tell you something, my friends. Over here, one second. By the way, if the Bailim, in all these cases, if the Bailim of the Ganav, both in the Havamina and the Maskana, whichever way you learn it, if the Bailim told him, don't use it, I don't allow you to use it, then for sure he has to pay, right? Because the Bailim made it clear, I'm not allowing this. But here we're talking in a case where the Bailim didn't know, and all of a sudden the Eved comes back after 2 hours of, severe, cleaning. So now, Hadar b'chatzar chaver shelo midaito. A person has an apartment, and the case, what did you start saying? A person has an apartment, where? For example, there's a neighborhood in Yerushalayim called Mamila. Mamila, I don't know if you know this, but unless things changed in the past 2 years or so, Mamila used to be, and maybe still is, basically a ghost town. Because in Mamila, I don't mean the shopping center, not the fancy shopping center, which I haven't been to in a very long time, Baruch Hashem. But Mamila, the apartments are very fancy. As far as I know, whatever other places in Yerushalayim, there are a lot of apartments there that are staying empty. And Mr. So-and-so, who Baruch Hashem has enough money, who lives in New York, LA, Muncie, London, wherever, Sydney, he has an apartment there that he uses for what? For once in 4 years when it comes to Eretz Yisrael. And the entire time it stays empty. And let's say somebody kicked Reuven out of his apartment. Reuven has no money, and Reuven says, okay, he saw the doors left open. Okay, that's science fiction. He somehow managed to get his way through, and he slept there for a month. He was very careful. All the original Van Goghs remained on the wall as they are, all the fancy gold dishes were there, all the diamonds. He didn't touch anything. He's a good boy, Reuven, but he needs a place to stay. So now this guy, the owner, Mr. Richman is the owner, he doesn't rent it out. It's not for rent anyways, right? And Reuven needs an apartment to stay, right? So that's called Ze Nehene. Reuven is really benefiting from the fact that for now he has where to stay, while Richman is not losing anything because really he was not going to rent it out anyways. It's not for rent. There is no for rent sign there, He's not renting it anyways. If so, Adar b'chatzar chaver shelo midaito, comes the question, tzorich la'alos lo sachar or ain't tzorich la'alos lo sachar? At the end of the month, all of a sudden the property manager comes back to life and he saw that Reuven was sleeping there an entire month. Comes Mr. Richman, big letters, red letters from a lawyer, you pay me rent. Yeah, somebody told me that his relatives, one of my son-in-law, daughter-in-law, they have a relative, yeah, who said that he found a very cheap place, only $1,000 a night apartment. It's a big apartment, so it's nice, big apartment. $1,000 a night was very big for Pesach, I think, for around it. Very cheap. He was very, very happy. Only $1,000 a month, a night. Oh shit. So yeah. So I'm happy for them. Such a bargain. So let's at the end of the month, poor Reuven gets a letter. Pay me. You stayed there for a month. That's I don't know, $20,000 cheap, not 30,000. $20,000 only. So does he or doesn't he have to pay Sachar? Does he have to pay for the rent? Because the question is, says Rashi in that Chov, or maybe even the Gemara there, how do you gauge Sachar? By what you lost or by what the other one gained? Am I paying rent because I'm gaining something, or I'm paying rent because he lost? Because for him it's an expense because he needs it for his parnasa. The answer was, it does not have to actually pay him anything. Doesn't have to pay him anything. Why? Because because you, Mr. Rich Man, I'm very happy for you that you have your very nice property and you are not renting this house. It's not for rent. And therefore, it's a sdoim. Now, lechatchila, Reuven is not supposed to go to his friend's apartment without permission. Reuven is wrong, lechatchila. That's before Shiur in Tosfos and also here in the Rishonim, because usually apartments are for rent. It's a sellable thing, it's a rentable thing. But the Eved, once he was there, then Mr. Rich Man, cannot actually charge anything because it's just midastone. He didn't lose anything. Same thing over here. So the Gemara wants to compare it, and the Gemara wants to say same thing with the Eved. This Eved is anyhow sitting there like a sitting duck, not like a sitting duck, sitting shlemazel, not doing anything. Anyways, it's not even his official break that he needs to have. No, stam, sitting way over his lunch break, not doing anything. You do not lose anything. Maybe I'm not a nice guy. I should have asked you. I'm sorry, I was lachutz. My grandfather was, needed the Filipino very dachuf, and you were not around. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I should have asked you. Good, but lamaisa, the acher maisa, once I used something which did not cause you any loss, which happens to be an eved, I don't have to pay you. And this, by the way, has nothing to do with gneva or sheila shaloi bershus. The two systems we spoke about before are irrelevant right now. Yes? Correct, the Gemara. Wear and tear. Why is it Mr. Richmond cannot tell Reuven, the illegal guy, the illegal squatter, why can't he say, excuse me, after a month or 2 months or a year, my apartment doesn't look the same? Says the Gemara coming from a different direction. Frag the Gemara, Hachi Hashta. What does Hachi Hashta mean? Is that the same? Is that comparable? The line starts with the word Bishlama, by the way. Line starts Bishlama, about 10 lines or so from the beginning of the page. Bishlama Hosam, by the apartment, there is no issue of wear and tear. Why not? Says the Gemara, by an apartment, there is no wear and tear issue because Bein Leman de Omer Beisa Meitzva Yotiv Nichale. There's a mechloikis over there in Daf Aleph. Why is there no issue of wear and tear by staying in someone's apartment? Because either number one, if the apartment is not managed nicely, today there's a concept called property management. Imagine yourself an apartment. I would not like to go into an apartment that was empty and desolate and completely not lived in for 5 years. I think if I open the door, I don't know if it's going to smell nice. I don't know what's happening with the leakage. And all the fish in the aquarium are for sure dead in the fish tank. And I don't know how everything else looks. And I don't know if somebody didn't leave some rotten bread from 5 years ago, right? You want to go to an apartment from 5 years ago, you're not exactly into some, I'm sure you've seen this in London. Okay, no stories for now, okay. So now, when a person lives in an apartment and he's a normal person, he actually makes sure Meitzva Yoti, the house it's lived in, is also better maintained. Nichale, so it's good really for the owner. It doesn't mean that the owner is and amazingly happy, but at least the Rishonim say it balances the wear and tear. Why are you screaming at me? I'm now representing poor Reuven. You're screaming wear and tear, wear and tear. Excuse me. Says Rashi, very interesting lashon. You know the word shiputzim? Rashi says mashpitz instead of meshapetz. Rashi says over here, ein charev letishadar betoicho tas umashpitz sdakeha tomid. There are cracks in the wall. Back then there were even more. Sometimes there's retivut. Science fiction. Have you ever heard of houses with leakage? No, not in this country. Never, ever. So if I live in an apartment, I live there. It's my own interest not to have the leakage, not to have the mold, not to have the crack. So I maintained it. So Lamaisa, don't come to me with your tiness. And therefore, I don't have to pay rent because the wear and tear are balanced also by people living there. And I also water the plants. Am I nice? Yeah. Now, and there was another opinion. Bein Leman de Oma, there was another opinion who said something in a similar venue, why there's no wear and tear issue. There's a pasuk that says, I'm scared to pronounce the pasuk. It says, Vesh'iya yukas sha'ar. What does that mean? There's a shade, a demon. Says Rashi, when a house is not lived in, when a house is left, all abandoned, then shadim come in. Shadim come in. The demons come in. There's a specific shade, and his name is Shaya. Sheia, not Shaya. No, Shaya is my son-in-law. He's a nice guy. Sheia Yukas Shar. Yeah, it is basically, he cuts, he destroys the doors, he destroys the house because he's a shade. So Lamaisa, if I live in a house, then the shadim didn't come in, and that's good. Nichale. So now Lamaisa, when it comes to the house, it makes sense that I don't have to pay for my rent-free time, and it should be rent-free because there's no wear and tear, because the wear and tear is balanced by the advantages of somebody living there. Yeah, Ella hocho, but over here, in the case of the Eved, that's not so. Minichale nikhush avdei. Is the owner happy? Nichale, is he content with the fact that his Eved is nikhush, what you called yesterday, weaker? Now my Eved is 2 hours weaker. Excuse me, my Eved now, you took my Eved once, twice, I don't know, for a year, for months, for 2 hours, you made him weaker. You enslaved him, with your sponge on your old grandfather that he has to pick up. Now he comes to me, all panting, looking like a caricature, so the makrish my Eved. And therefore, I am choser. Don't tell me, oh, then it is a choser. Don't be such a Dominic. Be nice to me. I didn't do it. Yes, you actually caused wear and tear to my Eved. So why does that go scot-free? Answers the Gemara, Amri, they say, Hachinami, here too, there is an advantage of the Eved working. Nichale, the owner of the Eved, the legal owner, is happy. The loylisteri avdei. He is happy, says Rashi, that his Eved, I'm not translating, I'll go straight to Rashi, shelo yilmad darke habatolo. He doesn't want his Eved to learn how to be a batlon, how to be a lazy bum. He's happy that his Eved is kept busy even during the times that he has nothing else to do. Because if the Eved becomes too used to working, to time off, time out, leisure time, very common in the Western world, so then the Eved will actually become lazier and won't be able to work. They always say, when you want something to get done, give it to a busy person. People who are busy will also do what you have. People are never busy, don't do anything the whole day, they won't even do what you want either. So he wants his Eved to maintain that lifestyle of being busy, being diligent, being productive, and therefore, again, so there is maybe wear and tear, but it's also balanced by the good fact, by the good aspect of the Eved being kept busy. So again, nobody says it's okay l'chatchila. Next time, if you come to my house, I don't have a vodim. What can I say? But but don't take anything without permission. But if the person took it, the Eved, let's say, not other items, only by the Eved. If he took, let's say, a pen or a phone, then we don't say that. Then in Echna, we go back to the old question of theft versus the other way. But when it comes to avodim, it's zenem as a because it was their off time, it was their time out, it was their lunch break, or extended lunch break that they shouldn't be taking, and he's happy that they're kept busy. That's why Rav Daniel Baktina Marav said that he doesn't have to pay for the 2 hours rent. That's why. But Enachinami, Louis Tsuyar, had it been that I took the Eved while he was, working for the real owner, he's in the middle of cleaning for Pesach. Pesach, in the middle of the Pesach. Remember Pesach cleaning? Avodim l'mitzrayim. Yeah. And what? And in the middle of that work, he goes and takes him in the middle of work. Then, of course, what? Oh, then what? Then what? If we say Eved is stealable and you stole the Eved, you don't have to pay for that time. But if you got older, you have to pay for the difference. But if the Eved is not stealable, if the Eved is considered to be all the time under the binding, then you never stole it and you have to pay for each and every hour. How much do you have to pay? as if you'd pay a poel, says the Shulchan Aruch. Like you'd pay a worker to do that work. You have to pay that to the owner. That's good so far. Yes, questions? You were no, who was I thought yeah. Oh, he was long. Then you have three. Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah. Story time. Story time on exactly the same idea. Bei Rav Yosef. It's also a new line and a new story and a new life. Every word of Torah you learn, you imbue life into the world. Bei Rav Yosef Bar Chama. In the household of Rav Yosef Bar Chama, was a rabbi, Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Avutakif Avdi, the Inshi, the Masik Behu Zuzi. They would sometimes take force avodim, slaves of other people. You know who were the other people? People that the Rav Yosef Bar Chama, it's like a verb that only exists in Aramaic and does not exist in, not that I know, in English or Hebrew. It's the opposite of being, it's being owed to, not owing. In other words, they were the people, no, it's a verb. Masik Zuzi, I owe someone, so that someone is owed by me, yeah? Now the Masik Zuzi, like in Hebrew, it's called Noshe, maybe. Masik Zuzi, Bekitzer, there were people that were the borrowers that Rav Yosef Bar Chama lent money to those people, and although they were his borrowers, what should be the relationship between a loiva and a malva because of ribis? You know that the loiva, the borrower, is not allowed to do favors, extra favors to who? To the lender. That's like ribis, similar to ribis the rabbanon. Although those people, the slave owners, were people that owed money to Rav Yosef Bar Chama, he would still sometimes take their slaves and do malacha with those slaves. He apparently relied on the psak of who? Of Rav Daniel Bar Chama b'Shem Rav, that sometimes they can take the slave, and he thought I can do it l'chatchila. I can take the slave sometimes and use him, even though those people who own the avodim I'm not supposed to gain any favor from them. And he didn't worry about it. Question is, why? Omar le Rabba Brei. Listen to this, a son approaching his father. And although the son is not allowed to rebuke his father, he can rebuke him gently and in a way of a question. Why do you do that? My time Ovid Marhachi. Father, oh no, why do you do that? Why do you take other people's avodim and use them without their permission? And no, it could be an issue of ribis also, as we'll see later on. Amar le, what's the problem? Rav Nachman says, Avda nehum kreise lo shabi. Rav Nachman was very disappointed with the behavior of certain slaves, and he made the sweeping statement about slaves, and he said they're not even worth the nehom. Nehom is nahama, is the bread. The bread that's in their stomach, they're not even worth it. Avodim tend to be lazy. Avodim are worthless. And therefore, if I take someone's eved, I'm not even taking such a valuable thing because it's not such a usable thing anyways. And says Rashi, I pay him while he works. While the eved works by me, I sustain him. So nobody's really losing anything. And avodim in general are hochen bei. Omer lei. So now Rabbah said that it's a question how he said such a thing. Rabbah answered his father, Ema, maybe, the Omer of Nachman, possibly Rav Nachman only spoke about his own experience. Kigon Daru Avdei. His slave was called Daru. Daru, you know, Daru is mentioned about Pesach. Yeah, Daru was a slave of Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman asked Daru a question: would you like to be free? Yeah, showing the Cheres of Mitzrayim. The kids are, Daru was the Eved of Rav Nachman. You know what kind of Eved he was? He was a no-goodnik, the Malkid Beikuvi, because he would go and dance. He would dance around and do his own job, dance by the bar, by the wine store. By the wine store, he'd go dance around and get money instead of doing his work. He was not a loyal Eved. He would go around town doing nonsense instead of washing the floor. But Hulu Avdi. But other slaves, most slaves, all other slaves, Me'abed Avdi. They do the work. In two words, don't generalize. Why generalizing all the Avodim? I'm from Avodim Rights, AvodimRights.com. Yeah, why do you say that all Avodim are lazy bums and no goods? Only this one, but not everybody else. You're taking Avodim that are potentially hard workers, and you're causing the owner to lose. How can you do that? Omar le. So he answered, Anoki of Daniel Svirali. I think like Rav Daniel, which we mentioned at the beginning of the Sugya. The Omar of Daniel bar Rav Ktina Omar Rav. Rav Daniel, son of Ktina, quoted Rav. Aterkev ba'avda shel chaveroi, also b'melocho, potu. The one who took the Eved is potu, and I could say it's even better for the owner. It's even lechatchila alma, that is to say, nichale deloy listere avdei. Oh, that is to say, and by the way, that is to say what? The owner is happy that the Eved does not get lazy. He's not loimed darkia batolo. He doesn't learn how to battle. Very interesting lotion. He doesn't learn how to be a battler, how to be a lazy bum. He's actually, never leaves hard work, which is good for him to maintain his hard work lifestyle. If so, it's good for the Adon. Why should he complain? The Adon is not losing anything by me taking the Eved. I assume we're talking when it's the Eved's downtime. It's the Eved's break anyways. And for the Adon, there's no gain anyways. The Adon is not losing anything by me taking his Eved. Adrabah, I'm teaching him how to work. Omar Lei, that could have been all very nice. Answers Rabba, the son answers his father. That could all be very nice. Hanimili, that is true. That is true if you're not the lender. If you're not the lender, then I hear what you're saying. And some Rishani would say, although it's a big chiddush, as long as a person doesn't scream and protest, if I know this is the Eved's downtime, and I know he's not doing anything, and I know that the Adon would actually like him to work a little bit extra, not to get used to laziness, it's no problem as long as you're not the lender. But Mar, you, Mr. Mar, came the Masik Zuzi, because you are the lender and they owe you money, it looks like ribis, even if it's not ribis. Lamais, you're gaining something extra that is not so acceptable to take someone else's Eved, and you are taking it to yourself. That looks like ribis. That looks like extra hano, extra charge you're taking for lending the money. The Omar of Yosef, now Rabba the son proves his point. The Omar of Yosef, Yomi, Omar of Nachman, and we're going now back to Reuven, who goes to Mr. Richmond's apartment in Mamila. Even though it's true what they said, that one who lives in his friend's field without his knowledge, b'di'eved, at the end of the month or at the end of the year or at the end of 5 years, does not have to pay b'di'eved. That's true, but there's an exception to the rule. Ilvahu, if Mr. Richmond actually lent, Reuven, that's not so, Reuven lent money to Mr. Richmond before he was rich. Yeah? Reuven lent money to Mr. Richmond. Yeah? Okay? Now Mr. Richmond owes money to Reuven. Okay? If I lent money to someone and then I lived in his house, then he has to give him money. Why? She shouldn't look like ribbies. To get extra benefit, extra all kinds of cute little services here and there from the person who's your borrower, you're not allowed to as a creditor, you would say, as a lender. As a lender. Okay. Why? Because it looks like ribis, looks like interest, even though it's not money, and even though it was not decided on originally, so it's not the oraisa. Meichzi. What does meichzi mean? Looks like ribis. Ribis is so bad. Ribis is so terrible. You don't want to do things that look like ribis. You don't look like you're eating cheeseburger. Don't be conceived by society as someone who takes ribis. And people would say, and it looks like a bit, oh, right, I lent you money. You forgot. Now you're asking me for extra money for apartment. Remember who lent? That's wrong. Even if it doesn't mention it. Because of that, that's a side factor here, which means it's also. So to you, my dear father, what you're doing is wrong. Because although taking the avodim, either l'chatchila or b'di'eved is okay, because the guy's not losing, and if anything, it's good for the avodim to stay fit and stay in the loop of work. That's all very nice, as long as what? Not the lender. If you're the lender, that's a different ball game. You're touching ribis. Omer lei hadribi. The father admitted that his son was right, and he says, Hadri bi, I regret, I repent, I revoke, I I actually agree with you that I was wrong. And then the camera focuses on his face, and you see the big tears coming down, right? Oh, sorry, son. Hadri bi, I regret what I did, and yes, it's wrong what I did, because as a lender, I should not get that extra benefit, even if he doesn't mind. It's not because I'm hurting his feelings or his money, but I'm getting some cute little extra work on the side from someone who is my borrower. That alone, that is as of itself is wrong. Rabbi Rubinstein wants to enlighten us. Now, on the same topic, on the same issue, we spoke about the avodim. Now let's talk about a boat. A boat, we assume, is always being used. And let's say somebody takes away your boat for a day. You wanted to take your kids on a Chol Hamoed ride in your own boat, in one of the boats that you have. What? Cruise, not ride. I know, a sail, a Chol Hamoed sail. Yachta, cruise. Yachta is the Hebrew word for yacht. Yeah. So then, okay, how many do you have? 10 yachts you have? So one of the yachts, you stop counting, right? So in one of your yachts, all of a sudden you see another guy is sailing, cruising without permission, and then he gave it back to you. What? And it's not your captain, right? Yeah, it's not a stranger. It's Reuven, a stranger. The guy from Amila, he now he moved to Yerushalayim, and he's still homeless. Now he wants to be in a boat. Some people know he's on vacation because he lived rent free. Now, yeah, he tells everyone he lived in Mamila, they think he's rich. Now he wants to go on a cruise in someone else's boat. And so he did. And eventually, what did he do? He gave it back. Yeah, he brought it back to the moor, to the pier, to the quay, whatever you call it, and it's now anchoring over there. Pay me, mister. You took my boat. Let's say my boat is, 500 shekels a day. Give me 500 shekels, yes or no? Itma, let's see the case. This is not complicated, but it's a tiny bit more complicated than before. We may also have to see Rashi inside, but the concept is very easy. But excuse me, I'm sorry for the delay. I'm going to open the extra Gemara over here. Itma. Yeah, a person took without permission, he forced, so to speak, his friend's boat. The also bought melacha, and he did some work with it. Let's say the actual sail, the cruise costs money, or he fished with it. It's a fishing boat, so therefore he fished some fish and whatever. It's worth money. It's worth money, and now I tell him, excuse me, pay me per day. Amarav, machlokes Rav Shmuel. Amarav, rotzo schor noitel, rotzo choso noitel. This is very, very good. Rav says, very interestingly, that the owner of the boat has the upper hand to decide which maslul is he taking, which means either he can tell the thief, let's call him a thief, you, mister, I view this boat as if it was mine all the time, so pay me the rent, right? A ganav does not pay rent. But if you're not a ganav, then you pay rent. You're an illegal renter, pay me the rent. 500 shekels a day. You were there for 3 days, that's 1,500 shekels, right? Or, depends which one's more. Look. Hey, there's a big crack in the bottom of the boat that wasn't there before. And even if it's not your fault, there's a pchat. There's a serious wear and tear. It's now, it was being degraded in value, devaluation. And let's say that crack is more than 1,500. That crack to fix it costs 2,000 shekels. I say, you know what? Instead of taking the rent, I prefer taking the higher price of the wear and tear. Who pays wear and tear? A ganav. No, a borrower doesn't. A ganav. It's like shinui. A ganav makes it a shinui. You can tell him, you take the boat and give me a new boat. No questions for now. Give me a new boat. Again, I'll repeat the two maslulim. It's legitimate. He got confused and it's okay. Again, the two possible maslulim are as follows. Maslulim, two routes, two directions, two systems. Yeah. Either the person can be looked at as a ganav. A ganav does not pay rent because while it was stolen, it was his. There was a kinyan gneva. However, for wear and tear, if they're significant, of course he has to pay because that's not worse than the shinui, not worse or better than the shinui. That's a different boat. You acquired your beautiful shinui of this ugly crack. Now pay me for that. Or you can keep this boat if I choose to and buy me a whole new boat, like the original one. So if that's the maslul of the ganav. Another maslul is the non-ganav one. It's an illegal borrower. I'm not a ganav, chas v'sholem ganav. I just borrowed it for 2 days. I'm an honest guy, white collar, even learning koilel. I just took the boat for 2 days because my koilel stipend is very low. So I took 2 days, my child on a trip. Now, so that guy who borrows without permission, what's the story with him? He does have to pay rent because he's not a ganav. If it never made the transition between Reshus A to Reshus B from the owner to the ganav, it's still under the owner. So there was no gneva to say, oh, shinui, change, shinui Reshus, shinui this. No, it's still under the owner. And therefore, it's as if I'm still operating that boat every day in Yafo. These places, Ashdod, Yafo, Netanya. And I operated, he just took it under my nose. It's still by me. Therefore, you do have to pay me 500 shekels a day. Rav here says something very interesting. Rav says that it's up to the owner's rights, and really it's a knas. I'll tell you a small secret. It's a knas for the ganav because he's not a nice guy. Either as a ganav or illegal borrower, he's not doing the right thing for not asking permission. So at the end of the day, Rav gives him some kind of, he's getting sticky, and he says the owner can choose which maslul to choose, which is a big chiddush. And that's what Rav says. The owner depends which one's worth more. If the daily rent is worth more, I'm going for the rent program. And I'm asking you now to give me 500 shekels times however many days. But if the change in the boat is higher, let's say now the boat looks much worse, and therefore it will be worth it for me to charge you for the wear and tear, which will be more than the rent. It will be 4,000, 5,000, the wear and tear. I'll go for the wear and tear one and charge that, called prat. That's Rav. I prefer no questions unless it's very, very, very nekudati. Yes? Okay, which is what? Shmuel says, Shmuel says no. Shmuel says no. He only takes the pchas. What does it mean? The pchas is only treated as a ganav. A ganav has to pay for wear and tear, for the shinui. In other words, Shmuel says no, the guy is looked at only as a ganav. What's the question? What's the story between Rav and Shmuel? Rav gives you both options. Well, Shmuel says no. I sort of define him as a ganav that only has to pay, never pays rent, and always pays the difference in price from the good boat and the not so good boat, the ward and torn depreciation. Thank you. Amar Pope, what's the story here? Loi pligi. Says La Pope, Rav and Shmuel don't even argue. It's not a real argument. They spoke in different cases. They spoke in different occasions, different cases. Oh, Davida le'agra. Oh, the lawyer vida le'agra. Very good. Which means I kept portraying a case which was very narrow-minded. What did I keep telling you? My boat is 500 shekels a day. That's not always the case. Some boats are not for rent. The guy is a snobbish guy. I once went to some with the kids. We went once to one of these fancy places, Herzliya, all kinds of fancy boats. And Chutzah, you also see they're not for rent. I think, right? The kids, no, it's only for the fancy guy to go. Him and his friends, yeah. So if the boat is le'agra, is meant to be rented out, then we assume that he did not want to steal it, right? Avida le'agra means he knows the guy who took the boat for a joyride. I knew that's it. For a joyride, illegal sale. He knew that it's meant that it's 500 shekels a day, and he wanted to get those 500 shekels a day for free, right? It's for agra. So then we say his kavanah was not to steal. He doesn't mean to steal it because it's not meant to be taken. It's meant to be rented, and he rented it rent free. So avida l'agra. So that makes sense. Avida l'agra. He doesn't mean to be a thief. What does it mean to be? He means to be a borrower. That's what Rav said. Rav said he's an illegal borrower. Oh, so why do you say that? Why, according to Rav, why do we say that the owner can treat him like a ganav? Knas. Because you're a naughty boy. You're a naughty boy. You took it without permission. Then Rav puts an extra gzera, which could apply to other items as well, my friends, Baruch. And a chinami. I'll decide. I'm the Dayan. I side with the victim, and I say you'll either pay like a rent, like you meant, or you may pay the higher price like a ganav, because you misbehaved. But but when Shmuel said that he's only treated as a ganav, that's a boat that's not meant to be rented. If I take a rent, another rent, I go to Herzliya, to Netanya, one of these fancy boats, private boat, not for rent, only for Mr. Richmond and his wife, then, and I take it, I'm not taking a free ride that's worth a rent. It's not rentable. So what am I? A petty thief. I'm just a gazlan by default. Mimela, then Shmuel said what he said, and Rav would agree to him. He's only treated like a ganav, and he does not have to pay rent because it's not rentable. But he will have to pay. He'll have to pay for their depreciation. And all this is the halacha l'maaseh Shulchan Aruch. First wide line, the Sema, alternative explanation of Rav and Shmuel. Could be that in both cases, Rav and Shmuel both spoke about a boat that's avida, that's meant to be rented. It's a boat. It's one of these cute ones in Tveria, right? In Tveria, every half a meter you go, there's another boat for rent for the children, right? So both avida lagra. It's a boat that's meant to be rented for an hour, for a day. But what's the difference? If the person went down and his idea was, I don't know how we can prove it, maybe by Adim, we know that all he wanted was to get it rent-free. His mind was, hey, you heard him telling his children, hey kids, look. You see, it's very educational father. You see the man over there? He's looking the other side. Hey, let's be smart. Let's jump on the boat. The boat is worth, 50 shekels an hour. Let's go for free. I know how to, there's education, right? To sail the boat. We know that his kavana was the agra. He wanted to get it, to rent it for free. Then what does he have to pay? Says Rav, you're a naughty boy. You either pay like a renter 50 shekels an hour, or if you see an ugly crack, you may have to pay more depreciation, either or, because you're naughty. But the gazlanusa, Shmuel's case, they viewed him only as a gazlan, is a boat that that is meant to be rented out per hour, per day, for something. But we heard the guy saying, hey, I want to nick it. I want to take it from him forever. Eventually was caught by the police or he regretted, but he had in mind to steal it completely. His mind was to steal. He has kavanah of a gazlan. And therefore, when he started sailing, then what? He was doing kinyan meshicha of gzela. If he's a gazlan, then you can't have both options. Because if he's a gazlan, he has to pay like a gazlan, no rent. Because gazlanim have a kinyan. Kinyan has no rent post the kinyan. All he has to pay is the wear and tear and the depreciation. Weiter, unless there's questions. Yeah, now I can't deny questions now, though I'd like to continue, but if you have questions, that's the place. No, study on the Shiur. 2 more minutes of Let's go, yeah? And if you have questions, ask me in 2 minutes. The end would take me a long time to review, so I'll do it in 2 minutes, okay? Gazel Matbea Benistak. I just going to start a little bit into the next sugya. We saw in the Mishnah, that's already an introduction for tomorrow, they would save us the time tomorrow. We saw in the Mishnah something very, very simple. If somebody stole an item, he's a thief, he's not a renter. He stole, let's say, a coin, and the coin was cracked. What does he have to do now? Return a new coin. The cracked one, keep for yourself, mister. That's some depreciation. No, he stole a good. Fine. Shiur's over. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the little bit of a mishap at the end. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.